Hey, listen up. Yeah, we here and we locked in. Let's keep it going all the way to the top 10. We fear the turtles, so it's no other option. Fred and Ryan, just watch them. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell.
All right, welcome back to another Shell and Tell. I mean, not the thing we wanted to see this weekend, but I don't feel like we did after Northwestern. All hope is lost. I am not in the pit of despair that Maryland has given to me once or twice before, but not the greatest start of a game. That's beyond this understatement.
Yeah, obviously Maryland falling at Minnesota 48-23, excuse me, in a game where Maryland really never had much of a chance. We're playing from behind from start to finish. Obviously, a huge disappointing loss coming off the heels of that homecoming win.
Yeah, homecoming win really reset the standard for us, had us hoping big things. This was the not home game that you could still see us winning. You'd still see us grabbing and making everything a lot easier moving forward in that race for 6. 6 is still technically on the table. We still have a chance against the Penn States and Oregons of the world, as slim as that may be. And we have Rutgers and Iowa that would give us a better opportunity. Would have been nice to only have to knock off one of them, but now you probably have to grab 2.
Yeah, obviously that Rutgers game becomes even bigger now to, probably the most likely chance to get that 5th win. And then, you're probably looking at that Iowa game the week before, then the next home game for Maryland is potentially maybe the most likely win on the season or on the schedule after Rutgers, obviously with, road games against a pair of top 5 teams sandwiched in between those home games. It's tough sledding for Maryland, no doubt, falling to 4-4. And we talked about it last week, that homecoming game, the homecoming win, obviously provided some optimism for the fans, and I think it was just kind of needed for it to happen on homecoming. But when you talk about the X's and O's, and Maryland was kind of able to turn the tide in that second half there, ride the momentum. The defense started to play a little bit tighter. The offense was able to put together some sustained drives, and that was kind of what you wanted to see a little bit more of going into Minnesota. Obviously, Maryland ended up dealing with a little bit of the injury bug there. Dante Trader ended up making his appearance in the second half of the game on Saturday, but Glenn Miller was absent. Callum Wyatt, who head coach Mike Loxley noted was a game time scratch right before kickoff. So big departures, but really the good that fans saw against USC, at least in the second half, was nowhere to be seen on Saturday until, frankly, MJ Morris came in.
Yeah, the overwhelming domination was their defensive line versus our defensive line. It looked like the most formidable defensive line that we've really seen. It seems more and more obvious that if you have a true Big Ten caliber defensive line, that we're not built to handle that. The USC, as good as they are on a national stage, is not the Big Ten yet. They're still on their way in. Gave us a little bit more of a chance. The Virginia game where we came back, that's an ACC line, as we know when we came in the Big Ten, built completely different than these Big Ten beasts. But the more and more true Big Ten dogs, which makes Iowa a giant question mark, because I'm sure they are going to be just as stacked as usual. That's where the glaring problem is for this squad.
Yeah, and really, you talked about just Minnesota, that front. They did really good, but I also think that front 7 really benefits from a stout secondary for Minnesota. I mean, they entered the game among the nation's leaders in points allowed per game, passing yards. I think they set 4th nationally in passing yards allowed per game. So that, I mean, we noted it in our preview, but that was kind of really where I felt Maryland could potentially win or lose the game, and frankly, it was the first quarter 2 interceptions that really put Maryland behind the 8 ball there, and you just can't do that on the road. Loxley said it post game, and maybe it sounds like just kind of a stupid quote, but Maryland really isn't a team where are built to spot a team 14, 21 points. We talked about it.
We do it a
The
lot
Michigan.
though.
Yeah, we talked about the Michigan game in 2023, the Ohio State game in 2022. Times where Michigan in 2021, I believe that was the game where the Ty Felton fumble off the kickoff, Michigan scored right off. Those are when I kind of talked about why this era, the Loxley era, is different from the rest. Well, you still do find in some games that you are plays, not players, away from those wins. But again, just really,
Not the case this weekend.
yeah, just thrown out the window. And once really Minnesota was able to capture momentum in that first quarter, again, it was their homecoming game, just like it was Maryland's the week prior. Minnesota has I really would say it's a sneaky environment. They have a really good, passionate fan base. So that you once you kind of fall behind like that, it's just like we said, too tough to climb.
Yeah, homecoming weekend, you spot somebody, 21 points or
Yep.
24 points or whatever it was, like that crowd's never letting go, and so
Yeah.
you're playing against everybody.
And exactly. I mean, I think, Maryland was kind of able to set the tone, really on that first drive. That first pass by Billy Edwards got Maryland right to midfield, but then getting stopped on fourth down, Minnesota being able to respond right back. And when Maryland was tasked with kind of slowing down the momentum, quick 3-and-out, Gophers responded with a nice drive. And then Billy Edwards has his second interception there. So it turns into a pick six. So just really felt like it snowballed. You could see Loxley on the broadcast going over to Billy Edwards multiple times, kind of making sure that they're on the same page, but just really didn't feel like it from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about, their defensive line really was the prime for them being able to stop us not only in the passing game but in the running game as well. Just I'm not able to get anything done, which is huge on that fourth down stop you talked about. But honestly, we got to give a little bit credit, or at least maybe a therapy session, a little bit credit. Our defensive line also played amazing against their running game. Didn't quite disrupt the passing enough, but that also came from just our secondary being completely depleted, so they didn't have to hold the ball very long to let them get there.
Yeah, and Minnesota, they entered Saturday, among the Big Ten's worst teams running the ball. But Minnesota as a whole really struggled offensively. I think by halftime, and that the 34 points that they had was already more than they had scored, and I believe in 4 or 5 of their games this season. The 48 points that they allowed, or Maryland allowed. Tied a season high, which Minnesota also matched against Rhode Island. But the problem is with how they did it. It's again, it's kind of the blueprint on how to beat Maryland, and we'll talk about it later, which kind of makes that next game a little bit more daunting than it already is. But
How can it get more daunting? The
Yeah.
farthest trip we've ever taken against the number one team in the nation after a bye week. That's
Yeah.
not good for at all for the Terps.
No, I was looking at it last night. At the last road win against a conference team was 2008 at Clemson, and it's wild. I was in high school. I distinctly remember where I was that day and watching it and all that. So it's just wild to think it's kind of been that long. But kind of getting back to Minnesota. I mean, the Gophers. Max Rosmer finished 79% with passing. He was really able to kind of slice up Maryland's defense. Daniel Jackson, he entered the game as kind of that name to know. Elijah Spencer as kind of that emerging guy, and both of those guys combined for 15 catches, over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. The secondary, we talked about in the offseason, would have been kind of intriguing if Maryland did go after another portal cornerback. And, I thought there was probably a good chance that Maryland probably could have gotten that portal corner and offensive lineman at the same time. But, in the end, I think just this is kind of the growing pains of this secondary. Judah Jenkins, who was lost due to targeting, and Braden Lee, who's already out for the season, that there's a guy like Kevin Humes into more snaps. Kevis Thomas, who's played a lot, stepped into the starting role in a lot of these games this season, with Jalen Husky sliding back to safety and Dante Trader's absence. But it's really, really kind of the growing pains. I think this is kind of, when you look back in 2-3 years, you kind of look back at some of these moments. A guy like Kevin Humes, who they have been probably just as excited about on the defensive side of the ball as they are about Trez Davis. So it stinks to watch. Really, I can't even shake it. But again, you kind of can't put a price, I guess, kind of on those game reps. But I think kind of what's disappointing about it is, you kind of looked at this front seven as probably being the strongest under Mike Loxley going into the season. And yeah, you mentioned, Maryland, did a good job limiting Minnesota on the run. Gophers did average a little over 4.5 yards per carry, but did a good job limiting the chunk plays. I think it was only 2 runs over 10 yards in the game. But again, it's kind of the blueprint on how to beat Maryland, how to attack Maryland is crystal clear. And I don't know if an extra week of prep will help, and historically it hasn't.
No, historically it certainly hasn't, and you're definitely taking a step up from Minnesota to the number 1 team in the nation. So even a slight improvement will not get us anywhere where we need to be for that game. But that's why you play the game. You gotta take your chances. You gotta take your lumps. I think that as a fan, it was much easier to accept the growing pains, as you put it, before the transfer portal era, because now we just sit and we wait and we just fear that we are giving live reps and practice for someone else's starter next year and not for our starter next year. And we could be wrong. It could be great. They could build on this and they could stay here, but it felt better. And it felt like more of like okay, we got to get through this, when there was like a majority of players not walking after each season.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And Maryland fans, 3-4 hours after we recorded last week, we saw Cam Edge hit the portal.
Yeah.
So
before we had even posted the show, it was already we already had a first departure.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of just no path to playing time, unfortunately, and it really stinks. I hate to say that. I mean, he got a chance this season, but really good kid. Can't say enough good things about him. He's going to find a good fit. But again, just kind of getting out. But obviously there is a belief that a lot of these guys are locked in, and a lot of these guys are kind of here for the right reasons. But got a month left of football, and I think if Maryland can get back in the win column, that helps things. But too soon to say right now.
Yeah, definitely need one more. Will be lovely to get 2 more. That probably at least ease the fear of fans, whether it actually changes things for players or not. We won't have to think about it until after the bowl game. Well, of course, you always lose a few between the end of the season and bowl game anyway. That's just the way it works. But at least you'll have something else to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just that's also just kind of the nature of it. I mean, there are going to be probably 1 or 2 players that do get tampered with. I mean, this stuff happens every year. It stinks. But I think kind of the interesting thing is, obviously this past spring, I mean, the context that I kind of didn't include was Maryland didn't have any space. There were no scholarships to give out at that point, so you couldn't take someone else in and make it work. That was a little tough. So I think kind of one thing that'll be interesting to see is just getting more experience, some older guys on the roster. I think that'll be something to watch this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, pretty clearly the offensive line. I mean, we have a couple guys, but that's gonna have to be built in the portal.
I don't know that it is. You get Isaiah Wright back. He'll have 2 years of eligibility. He's already off the boot. He should be back by the time off-season workouts kick off in January. So he should be able to get out there. So that's a potential Josh Kaltenberger replacement right there at center, which is probably that position that you kind of need next year. You obviously Luba and Alan Huron. Both of them have kind of struggled. Obviously, I see the mentions on 66 on my Twitter, so I know what the fans are kind of thinking there. But just kind of an extra year in his first full year of starting here on a guy that this offseason, he was kind of that guy. They said he probably has an NFL potential. Needs the full 2 years to kind of get adjusted, especially this year just going from D2 to Big Ten football. That's a big step up. But I think obviously, Andre Roy, he's another guy who comes back, that left guard spot, I think, maybe that's where Isaiah Wright kind of comes in. I think, guard is probably, fit for him as well, but he has experience playing center, but I don't know that you necessarily need to overhaul the offensive line. And then, Terez Davis, I think he's a guy, I think it will be really interesting next year. Wouldn't be shocked I mean, at a minimum to, kind of push Andre Roy. I think that'll be some really good, healthy competition. But, Ryan Howerton, he's another guy who's kind of consistently been in this second string. Michael Hershey, I mentioned it before for subscribers, but since that first scrimmage, he's consistently been backup center with Tamaris Walker playing guard. So I do think that there are some pieces, and again, I think a lot of people kind of say that, there's no development, and there. I can go down the list of 3 stars that Maryland has signed that they came here, didn't have a lot of other power fours. I mean, you can look up Caleb Wheatland at a high school. Look at all the schools that were after him, and kind of look at his production. So I think there are some pieces in the trenches where Maryland can turn to. Now, could Maryland add maybe one guy? Sure, but I don't know that it would necessarily be an overhaul the way it was this past year.
Yeah, we're not going out for a whole squad of mercenaries in that scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's not as dark as it may seem. You heard it here on yeah. So and the defensive end of the game, or the defensive backfield, that is obviously the second weakness. We're seeing that develop right in front of our eyes. Like, those guys are young and in place. If they stay, are most likely your starters, and will hopefully be in a much better position with a whole year of Big Ten play underneath their belt. Pretty much every year we try to bring in a corner. I mean, it's a position where you seemingly never have enough. Look at the Ravens losing to a 1-6 Browns team this weekend because we didn't have 2 corners, and many other insane reasons. Yeah, or a face mask, or the world's greatest kicker missing kicks, or like 1,000 one of the top safeties in the league walking with a ball in his hands for 12 yards, not being able to catch it. Any number of these reasons. Not bitter at all, Adam. Wasn't looking forward to that erasing my Maryland game, and just obviously can't happen this weekend.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal on Saturday afternoon.
But as a Commanders fan, not a great game, but what a hell of a last play.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, I very rarely get super emotional, but I was screaming after that one. My dad was coming back from New Jersey New York visiting my sister, so I was giving him updates, and I was like, Bears scored, we lost, that's it. And then 10 seconds later, I'm texting him in all caps. So yeah, hell of an ending to cap off the weekend, and frankly salvage the weekend.
Yeah, I thought the Ravens were going to get the same thing. We had a bunch of family over eating, and when they scored, my wife kept saying, well, they just lost. They just lost with 59 seconds left. They went up, 5 points. And I'm like, that's saying a lot with Lamar Jackson on the squad. Let's give it a minute. And we had a couple chances at the end zone, but just couldn't pull it off. Unlike that pretty awesome Hail Mary. The ability in the pocket, and the fact where he avoided them so many times that the defensive linemen couldn't even walk to him. Like, they were so exhausted. They didn't even need to be blocked anymore. That was pretty insane. I can't remember seeing a full group of linemen just unable to walk, just completely gassed.
No, it was pretty wild. I texted my buddies right after. I told them, I think this will immediately be remembered, just like the Sean Taylor blocked, or the field goal that was blocked against Dallas 15 years ago. I mean, that yesterday's game, and with it being number 1 versus 2, I thought that was just probably one of the better games I've watched. Probably the best game I've watched in the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, we would be on the up and up if we were a Commanders podcast. But Maryland football, we still gotta get it back back on the right tracks.
Get a chance to and 3 consecutive bowl seasons, and I think a lot of fans, at this point, they've made it clear that not a lot. I mean, some fans are just like, oh, I don't care. Who cares about the blah 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 bowl? And well,
those people never cared anyway, because Maryland wasn't doing top level stuff ever. So if we can get to a mid-level bowl, that's what a good season is for Maryland. Sure, would I like to surprise somebody and go to a New Year's Six bowl once every decade? Great, but that can't be the standard. That absolutely can't be the standard.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I think it'll just kind of be interesting. Again, I've talked about it from day one, and it's tough. I've talked about it with people offline as well. Like the recruiting aspect versus just the X and O's on in year 6. A lot of people are kind of looking at recruiting and saying, yeah, the guys are great, but what changes on the field? So I get that, but there are a lot of key pieces that are coming in, and for Loxley, obviously they still have a lot to play for. They can very easily change the narrative and pull off the miracle at Oregon and Eugene and Happy Valley. You know, end the season at home, we're winning the last two. You know, those things would completely go a long way. And so I think it's important to kind of talk about just rather than now than, kind of just the projection of it. But I think just, big picture, there's obviously a lot of disappointment among the fan base, rightfully so. I don't think a lot of people expected it to go this way. So for Locks, because we know that he will be here at least till next year, at least till the
least.
year after that. I mean, like, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
The odds that he probably finishes out his contract. I mean, that's 100% my expectation. We're just not there. So it's all about just keeping these pieces, kind of building it, and making sure the season's an outlier. But again,
Yeah.
we'll see if they can and change the fate for bye week and face Oregon the week after.
The season as a whole, because of the USC win, can completely, be changed. The only thing that I know is going to live with me is I can't remember what year it was, but the loss to Bowling Green on the road has always been like that prototypical, like, how can Maryland pull off losing to this in this moment? And that, after sitting down in my seats and looking at Northwestern, will be that for this year. Like, even if we somehow won 3 of the next games, like, I will still be like, how did we lose to Northwestern, where we could have put us in this whole nother level of bowl game, to not have done that? Like, that's the one negative that we'll live on. The Michigan State loss, though it is bad, will fade into the darkness. The Indiana and Minnesota losses, I don't even think they're bad. Those were losses that were, at least 40% to 60%, no matter what you thought of the game. Like, you were either we'll probably win or they'll probably win, was kind of the looks preseason. And Indiana, now looking back, it would have been a miracle if we won. Like, they're just a runaway train.
Yeah, no, I mean, Indiana, no doubt. Like, I mean, and I actually, people, when they asked me preseason, hey, who do you think is a surprise team in the Big Ten? I thought it would be Nebraska, just kind of with Dylan Raiola coming in, and they gave Ohio State the scare this weekend.
Yeah, they scared Ohio State pretty good, but
it was. I mean, they I think they have some pieces, maybe another year away, but obviously Indiana does it. But for me, it's not. And I want to be clear. I don't get upset over games anymore. Like, I like, honestly,
I still do.
I'm so far. Like, I just think I'm just removed. Like, I've somehow just removed the emotional component.
It's that professionalism he's got, ladies and gentlemen, right there. It's
I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't get too upset about losses anymore, but I think just kind of the thing that sticks out for me, it's not the end result, it's just how they lost. And I think it's just how Maryland lost against Minnesota. It's just kind of, I hate to sound cliche, the coach speak, but it goes back to, the Terps versus Terps and the lack of execution, the unforced errors, penalties. I mean, that kind of stuff just really irks me. And again, we're in year 6 now. So again, that this kind of stuff, year after year, that's kind of the stuff that is a little bit bothersome. But yeah, obviously, Northwestern, that, going building right off that, losing the way they did to Northwestern, this probably makes it one of, if not the most humiliating, inexcusable losses of the season. Michigan State goes back to, Terps versus Terps. If there were 4 or 5 plays in the last 10 minutes where if Maryland just did one of those things, did what they needed to do, they would have had an extra win in their win column. So, I think that's kind of the theme of the season. But
that's college football. When you're fighting for 6, a 1-win difference is so huge.
Yeah,
it's a just completely different feeling.
Yeah, and looking back at it, that Michigan State loss just really completely deflated the fan base. And imagine a 2-0 start, and you're kind of talking about some small things here and there. But obviously, for Maryland right now, I think it's getting everyone on the same page. And like we said, Maryland's now, I believe, 0-6 in games following the bye week. So they'll face Oregon next week, and that passing attack, Dylan Gabriel, Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson, they've got some dogs. And again, I don't know what new the secondary has to do. Again, we kind of touched on that, but
You almost have to
Figuring,
gamble on everything. You just have to try to intercept every ball, and you're either just gonna
go big
lose by
play.
80 or you're gonna win. And like it almost be like the only way to beat a squad like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. But yeah, Maryland needs to kind of get back on track, and they'll hit the road recruiting a little bit this week. Make sure the 25 class is intact, and yeah, we'll see if they can shock the world.
Well, if you're looking forward, let's talk a little bit of the developmental players from this Minnesota game. Since it got out of hand so early, we got to see some of our younger players step up in ways they really hadn't. You already mentioned MJ Morris clearly at the end of the game in cleanup duty, but looked way better than the last time we saw him in any kind of official role at quarterback. Definitely looked to have much more of a grasp on the playbook into my very untrained eyes.
Yeah, no, I think he looked really comfortable. I mean, you could tell even though it was, game was well out of reach at that point, he was fired up to get back in there. And yeah, I mean, the offense looked smooth and frankly, was kind of looked a little bit different. And, obviously, a lot of people will say, fourth quarter Minnesota didn't have a lot of their guys in, but they did have a lot of their starters in. Justin Wally, who had the 32-yard and pick six in the first quarter, he was still out there. Obviously was able to connect with Shalik Knotts on that 49-yard touchdown before I think it was a 21-yard touchdown for the game's final score there. So again, I think he was able to really showcase, kind of the dual threat ability. Again, I think it should be very clear to note that there is no quarterback controversy, no quarterback like that's just not
as they showed on TV. Billy has better stats than Talia did last year, so there is no reason to be talking about benching a quarterback, no matter how good your backup played against a prevent defense at that point.
Yeah, and again, at that point, it's just wasn't Billy's day. Get good chance to get someone else reps to kind of close out the game. I think that's kind of obviously the main driver there. But yeah, I thought MJ he looked really good.
Yeah, and then like you mentioned, Octavian Smith's been stepping up a little bit lately. He had another good game. Octavian Smith 4 for 51. Shalik Knotts actually with the 2 for 70 and the touchdown, as you mentioned. Shalik Knotts probably had one of his better games against Big Ten type competition. He's had a few other games versus the little guys, but that was one of the better ones I can remember against Big Ten type competition.
Yeah, he had that one catch, like that butt catch against Indiana. So I mean, he's flashed at times, and I think just being able to put it together, just really being an alpha dog and kind of playing with that mean streak, I think is kind of that next thing. And again, him and downfield and those 50-50 balls, as a not necessarily that I view him and Caden Prather as the same type of wide receivers, but similar types of routes being used similar, as that vertical downfield threat. So again, I thought, him kind of being able to capitalize there. Now it's a chance about about building on it. But yeah, definitely good to see. Starting to see a little bit more and more from the 30 wide receiver.
And every game, I seem to find at least one play that Preston Howard kind of takes my breath away. This is going to be one of those top guys that I hope really is all development for us. We can keep him around here and build him up to the next big, great tight end here for the Terps, because as few reps as he has played at tight end, being a quarterback in high school, my man has shown some top-level elite skills at times, and I hope we continue to see these flashes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they look good, and again, just being able to get in late and get some of these guys reps, I think is definitely valuable. But yeah, no, definitely stuck out.
Yeah, I mean, so what else can you say? I mean, that game is what it is. It became a spring game pretty quickly, a game to get tuned up, work on things, practicing live competition, and that's what it was. As we talked about coming up, you have a bye week. I don't know how you fix the problems we have. The defensive backfield, as we talked about, has a better shot of getting better than the offensive line does, as they are only getting less and less healthy and thinner as the year goes on, as is usual for offensive lines. And you're not going to get much bigger and stronger in season. So that one is a slow developing process at best. A bye week, we're usually terrible at those. We come out to the farthest trip ever out there in Oregon. You can't go unless we're playing Hawaii. I guess you can't go much further anymore. And against the number one team in the nation, showing no signs of slowing down. Sure, they play Michigan this weekend. I don't think they'll slow down for that at all either. I think they'll also roll against Michigan. So unless Michigan somehow like hurts a lot of players, my prediction is we lose and we lose really badly.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan's best chance, obviously, this weekend is kind of be able to control the ground game. Lean on that run game and really control the clock because they obviously do think Michigan's defense at Will Johnson I think will be fun matchup to watch him go against that Oregon passing attack. But yeah, I think Oregon just a little too much firepower and Michigan just doesn't have enough of it. So I think obviously for Maryland, we talked about the secondary against Oregon's passing attack and kind of the other, the other side of the ball, offensive line wise for Maryland, Andre Roy, he went down versus Minnesota this past weekend. So his status for 2 weeks, obviously that extra week of rest does help, but this would be his second notable injury of the season. So that'll be something to watch. Obviously with Therese Davis, probably the next man up with Marcus Dumerville, kind of ironing out that tackle rotation. Kyle Long, he's kind of been a swing guy, capable of playing tackle, primarily a guard. And then, obviously, so, the offensive line has been a work in progress with Damian Roblowski. He mainly leading that unit. And then, the run game, Maryland's been able to, or has not really been able to find much balance consistently. Just barely finished with over 100 yards rushing, 104 yards on 26 carries. Would have been the fourth time this season that Maryland failed to eclipse 100 yards rushing. Really not for that DeJuan Williams late run there, run. I think it was 24-yard run in the opening minutes of the fourth quarter. But speaking of DeJuan Williams, it'll be really interesting to see, just how often and how frequently he's used to close out the season. I think this is his second game of the season. He has 2 left. And obviously with him stepping into the rotation to potentially fill the void by Colby McDonald, who ultimately went down versus USC in what proved to be a season-ending injury. Probably I mentioned this on the board, but probably the most underrated, underappreciated player in the Mike Loxley era. So I think that's kind of a big loss for that running back rotation. Obviously Roman Hemby, Nolan Ray kind of leading the room, getting Ray touches, being a speed guy. I think that's kind of expected a lot more of that this past weekend, actually, with kind of that game plan to utilize the speed guys against Minnesota. So getting Ray a little bit more involved. And then, seeing how Josiah McLaurin, how he's able to continue to affect the passing game. But again, just kind of next man up mentality in both the offensive line and running back room.
Yeah, no, McDonald's definitely one of the most underrated running backs that Maryland has had. I mean, when he came in, it was him, Littleton, and Hemby all the same year, right? And the only one that really got run in the regular season was McDonald. McDonald was the one playing early. It was that bowl game in New York City where we just saw all the freshman running backs just really put their name on the line, which made Littleton a big name for a little bit, and Hemby continue to be a big name here at Maryland. But McDonald was the one that you thought was going to be your feature back going to the next year before that moment, because he was the young one that had gotten touches. So it ended up being that he was more of a complimentary back the rest of his career here, but he stuck it out. He was a part of the system and a few very good, rushing teams for the Terps over these years, winning a few of these bowl games. So his contributions do not go unnoticed, at least by this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, he averaged over 5 yards to carry, I think, every year. So it's been definitely a productive career for him. So yeah, I think that's tough way for his first career at Maryland to end.
It is, absolutely. Well, that's all I got on football. You want to talk a little basketball to get people a little excited around here?
Yeah, we got the season opener on next Monday at 7 p.m. against Manhattan. Big year 3 for Kevin Willard, I think, obviously with the transfer portal additions, Jacoby Gillespie, Selton Miguel, Rodney Rice, Tafari Gapare, all these guys kind of being able to mesh in with Julian Reese, and then Derek Queen, the 5-star freshman, being able to come in, being really as advertised, just super skilled around the rim. I think him and Julian Reese mesh well together. So a lot of intriguing pieces for Willard. I think it'll be interesting year 3.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it play out. Definitely we'll get down there for a few games. As we've talked about before, the basketball season for me really doesn't start until the students come back in January. Like, I will watch all these games, but I don't feel like we know much about the team till a week or two into that. So it'll be good to see where we're at that moment. I do have higher hopes. We seem to have bought some guys that can make baskets from the outside. In the history of this team, when we've done that before, somehow that's just much harder to shoot threes at Maryland. So we'll see if this one actually translates. If it does, this should be one heck of a fun squad to watch. Also, my little girls are very excited about women's basketball this year.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how much she's going to play because she's a freshman, but Miss Ava McKennie, Alice
Oh yeah.
McKinney's sister, does join the squad this year. So I am being hassled by Emma and Lily Shamel left and right. When does Ava play? When does Ava play? So that will definitely be in our list of maybe 2 to 3 ladies games this year,
Oh yeah.
and maybe we can see an Ava sighting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that being able to keep the Maryland tradition going is, I think, what every alum wants to see. So, but yeah, obviously with women, the Brendan Freeze being able to, get be able to build on. I mean, they leaned a lot on the transfer portal as well. I think it was 10 new additions, including 7 in the transfer portal. So, big year. Obviously, they got Texas, they got Duke on the non-conference schedule. So, some marquee games before they play. I think that. Believe it's a home and home against Ohio State as well. So, lot of ranked opponents. So, we'll see. I think obviously coming off that down year, but for the men's side, you talked about just those early season games, and I think that's completely fair. Just kind of with it kind of being a little bit more of just kind of a tune up before the students get there. Obviously, you have those 2 Big Ten games for Maryland there, where they'll travel to Purdue as well in that early December stretch, but. Really for Maryland, I think kind of to open up the season, obviously, I think, the season opener, I kind of really want to see how Jacoby Gillespie, how he runs. I think he's kind of that Mr. Do-it-all in that backcourt where he can, Willard talked about on 106.7, he can play a little bit of the two. He can shoot the three, whether it's a catch and shoot, whether it's create for himself, but just being able to kind of run the show. And then, Selton Miguel just kind of being in that alpha dog personality. How does that alpha dog personality kind of work in the backcourt? I think it'll be really interesting. I think just the Julian Reese, Derek Queen combo with Gillespie in the pick and roll game, I think will be super fun to watch. Derek Queen, David Cox. He talked about it media day. Just Derek Queen being able to extend his shooting range a little bit, kind of outside the paint a little bit. So I talked about it before, but I think Derek Queen, Julian Reese, while they are 2 big guys, they do a really good job kind of complementing each other. Don't eat the same space, so they can play off each other well. There are a lot of pieces to like, but I think just kind of through that stretch until the winter break is over, a lot more fans are coming back in. Big Ten really heats up. Is the shooting? I think that is something that you can kind of tell. Whether it is the 3-point shooting. That stuff does, I think, translate into conference play. The efficiency in the offensive sets. I think that those are kind of you work through them. Obviously, you want to get some of these guys a little bit more reps at times. I think defensively, I think it'll be really interesting. Kevin Willard has previously he's talked about just how intense the defense is, how the defense is always usually set, like they're good. The offense is a work in progress. I think it really be really interesting to see kind of how those defensive sets work. I think Selton Miguel, he can play the full court, and Gillespie, he proved that he can, he's a force. I believe he finished on the all defensive team last year in the NBC. So again, I think there are some pieces to like, and then again, I'm just excited to watch Queen and Julian Reese.
Yeah, and as excited as the upgrades to the football stadium has made me, which we, even before that comeback against USC, that fourth quarter break with the red lights and the show and the cell, like there was just this feeling of, I still get it. I can still feel the Big Ten money. Why we did this? Why we put up with this? Like you look and see the upgrades. Like we don't look like that if we're still sitting in the ACC. And this year, the basketball side of things, that's also true. They upgraded their whole scoreboard. Megatron sound system. And as good as the sound system is in the football stadium where it's open and it's weirdly one-ended and stuff like that, I imagine the sound in the basketball arena is going to be absolutely epic.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited to hear that for the first time as well.
Yeah, the scoreboard looks pretty cool. We were in there for media day, so it's yeah. So but I'll be honest, man. This is my personal opinion. People say Maryland football fans are bad. I've personally thought that,
Basketball's getting pretty bad too.
I think basketball is probably worse.
Yeah.
And we
Because they're spoiled on top of all the other things about us.
but I want to take off like the journalist cap for me. Like just come out. It's genuinely sad when you have a 7 o'clock game on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and there is no one in the
No
arena.
one.
It's sad. It's sad. So I hope we see that change. But again, once Big Ten play kicks off, I'm not expecting that to be an issue. But yeah, I'm pumped for some basketball.
Yep. We've made the claim calls 1,000 times here. Like, it's basketball, it's indoors. The weather shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, the timing, yes, 495 sucks, but there's plenty of you that live within 15 minutes of that arena to fill that arena. Like, there's plenty of you that can get there. So that's it. It's all the negatives of being in a big metropolitan area for a college are also the positives. Like, yes, it's more difficult because of traffic. The reason there's traffic is there's an extra 30 million of us that could fill the stadium.
Yeah.
So like, it's a chicken or egg thing here. But it's became acceptable to come to football games late, to leave football games early. It's become acceptable that you don't go to basketball games unless they're marquee matchups. It's become acceptable. It's a bad culture. It really is.
Yeah,
I don't know how we fix it, but it is become worse and worse every year.
Yeah, but I think winning. I think that winning does cure everything. But again, I think there's a lot of pieces for Willard to be able to string together some wins. Obviously, they got that Marquette game November 15th as really that first early season test for Maryland in non-conference play. They got Villanova, they got Syracuse on neutral sites as well. So it'll be interesting. Not a ton of opportunities for Maryland to kind of prove themselves this year, but I think there's a lot to like, and I think obviously, like we said, shooting. I think that's kind of the biggest question, what everyone's kind of looking for, and how it kind of sustains from practice into real time games. I think it's kind of what everyone's anxiously waiting for that first game. But nonetheless, the busy season is officially here.
Yeah. Well, this is one of those weeks where Ahmed's very luckily we do this virtually. As you can obviously tell, I feel terrible, fairly ill. Probably would have wanted to cancel this, but the last time that I couldn't do a show because of a family vacation was coming off a bad loss, and I wasn't about to let you all think that I just don't show up for shows when we lose. So if we would have beat Minnesota, we probably wouldn't have a show this week. So I guess thank Minnesota for hearing your boys. I think that's probably been where I was at.
We'll take it.
But yeah, I mean, drag your ass out there, sick, injured, I don't care. Let's get out to the stadium, support both these teams. They deserve it. Support the ladies. You want to whine about winning, the ladies win. So if you want to see a winner, get out there too. Like, just do your thing. But we got a bye week right now, going out to see number one, but that does not change the plan. We all need to be there for Rutgers. That Rutgers win is as pivotal as the Virginia game at this point. Without that win, you basically lose all hope again. It feels like Northwestern. So let's get out there and beat Rutgers like we usually do. Let's bring some noise and make sure they're uncomfortable. Until next time, here's the wishing. All is well under the show.